Ladies and gentlemen, I'm hyped for this week's episode. It's Des Moines, Iowa, 1997 USA Motorsports, broadcasted live on TNN's Motor Madness. To everybody out there listening on YouTube, thank you so much. If you're not subscribed, please do so. Also, remember to like and comment on this video. Help us out in that algorithm a little bit and get us boosted up. This show is awesome, and I'd love to bring it to as many eyes as we possibly can. Also, if you're listening on Spotify and iTunes, thank you guys as well. Always remember to follow us on Spotify and leave us those 5-star reviews on Apple iTunes. Without further ado, let's get to Des Moines in 1997 and talk about the first ever live television broadcast of monster truck racing. Welcome again, one and all, to the Retro Monster Truck Review. This week, a pretty special broadcast, Matt. This is the first ever live broadcast of a monster truck show on national television.
It's Bill O'Reilly's favorite episode.
We'll do it live!
Exactly. Can't do anything unless it's live. I mean, live TV is something that I have harped on for a number of years as far as monster truck racing goes, as the next step in the next evolution of the sport. Here in 1997, we're already doing it, though. We've got TNN's Motor Madness. TNN was known to throw out different programs every now and then that would just kind of catch your eye as far as motorsports go, and Motor Madness certainly was one of them.
Yeah, you know, getting to the end of 1996, Gaylord Entertainment, who owned the national network at the time, decided they're going to mix up their Friday night lineup a little bit. They're going to pull the reruns of rodeo and primetime country, and we're going to do a 3-hour motorsports block from 8 to 11 p.m. every Friday night. And man, I'll tell you what, remembering back to those days, it was like the quintessential order a pizza, get the popcorn going, sit down in front of the TV with the family kind of night, or your friends, because there was a lot of different things going on every Friday night here on Motor Madness.
There certainly was, and I can tell you this was must-tune-in television for me as a kid. I used to watch Motor Madness religiously right up until the point the whole Dusty Rhodes thing started, and then I was kind of like, you know, it's getting a little bit corny. But after that, or before that, excuse me, this was literally must-tune-in every week television, because not only was it a monster truck event, it could have been a swamp buggy event, it could have been an auto racing event, ASA could have been playing on there. And the other thing, too, is there was a lot of NASCAR personalities, at least on this show, that kind of chimed in through, and it's nice to get that little bit of a rub from a sport at the time that was ascending greatly.
NASCAR was ascending in huge numbers during the late 90s. They had huge marketing out there, and getting these feature interviews and stuff on the Motor Madness program with a lot of the NASCAR stars certainly brought a lot of eyes to the program. And I really like the way that they package this whole deal together, where you have live entertainment, and then in between the live segments, you have interviews, other motorsports information and coverage. They really evolved the show throughout its 2-year run a good bit, you know, beyond some of the scripted stuff that they used to fill time in the second year. We're talking here the early 1997 episodes. It's a little unrefined at this point. It's the first live episode. They're kind of figuring things out as they go, but we end up with a really good broadcast, I think.
That we do, and we are in Des Moines, Iowa. This is the Veterans Memorial Auditorium. At least it was known that from 1955 to 2012. Currently known as the Community Choice Credit Union Convention Center. Say that 5 times fast. Good Lord. It's part of the Iowa Event Center. And believe it or not, Matt, Elvis Presley was actually the first major act to perform here in 1956.
Thank you very much.
But in 1982, something else happened. Ozzy Osbourne famously bit the head off a bat here in 1982. Talk about a big flip in the music scene right there.
Boy, what a cross-section of the entertainment industry there. Is that why those big curtains were there in the auditorium, so they could only show Elvis from the waist up?
That would be my assumption, yes.
And you fast forward a couple decades, and we've got one of the most famous live performances in rock and roll history. It's a very hallowed hall, if you will, in terms of the entertainment world.
That it is. One thing, I know you and I are both kind of a little bit of a wrestling nut here. WWF Saturday Night Main Event number 21 was held here. Hogan and Boss Man inside of a steel cage.
brother.
Let me tell you what, brother.
Well, let me tell you something, brother.
In 2010, the building was renovated into a state-of-the-art convention center, and Wells Fargo Arena is now hosting some events. And I got to tell you, it's a beautiful place to host a monster truck event. And if you can't tell that, just look at this event. USA Motorsports is the promoter that's coming in here, and they brought a stellar lineup of trucks. Actually, there's no giant big name that jumps out at you, maybe other than the Samson or Equalizer. Excuse me, I almost said Executioner, but that's another one that jumps out too. That's 3 of your lineup right there. We've also got Misbehaving, Dragon Slayer, and Bulldozer are the other 3 trucks here. We got David Morris, Tim Hall, Dan Patrick, Julie Christensen, and Craig Christensen, as well as Guy Wood driving these trucks. And it's, like I said, not an entirely big star-studded lineup, but at the same time, pretty good competition here for the first ever live broadcast.
We've got a lot of rising stars here for the live broadcast, and this is actually the second weekend out for Guy Wood's Bulldozer. A lot of people think that this is where the truck made its debut, but in reality, the truck did debut the week prior at the St. Louis Monster Jam, and Bulldozer was racing against Monster Patrol in that famous, lawn dart. Well, not lawn dart. It was a tail end crash that Paul Schaefer took there. They used on the intro for Inside Monster Jam. He was racing against Bulldozer in that race, and that was the debut night for Guy Wood with the Smoke Craft Big Bull with the horns sticking straight up at this point before we went more aerodynamic later in the season.
Yeah, this is kind of the Bulldozer that you would see on the old Monster Truck Madness video games. Honestly, this was the Bulldozer. Well, actually, I take that back. The Bull in the MTM2 game had the horns facing down. This one's got the horns facing up. But everything under the horns is still the exact same as what you would have saw in the video game. There's even some ears on the B-pillars of this truck. And at one point in this broadcast, they're going to actually say, because they're hiding the camera up underneath the front tire, they're like, oh, we're checking for some cavities on the Bulldozer right here. It's something that made me chuckle on the broadcast as far as the Bulldozer goes. Of course, Guy Wood, veteran monster truck driver. Nice to see him in this field. But also, we've got the pair of Craig and Julie Christensen. First time we've talked about them on this show. Dragon Slayer and Misbehaving was 2 trucks that I really enjoyed looking at back in the day. They were very well put together machines.
They really were, and similar but different in the way that they kind of operated. Julie had an iron block Ford engine. Craig had the big Donovan, the aluminum engine, Chevy based, and running the Firestone tires. One of the few privateers at the time that were really running a set of cut and buffed Firestones full time. So it was cool to see them. And then, we've got Samson here with Dan Patrick. Always going to be a top competitor on any tour that we're on, especially here at USA Motorsports. Equalizer, David Morris, he's still one of the top names in the sport at this time. He's an owner driver by this point and doing really, really well. And we round out the field with Mr. Tim Hall in Executioner. This is the HBR 001 chassis. This is the original 4-link truck that they had built. And the reason why is because they had actually rolled the number 2 race truck the week prior in Memphis.
Thumbs up. Here they go. It's close right now. Watch him go to work. The Executioner up on 2 wheels. Bigfoot in the lead. Bigfoot's there right this moment. The Halls have got to really get on the throttle. He's in trouble. It is. Bigfoot.
Oh, look out, look out. Oh, Bigfoot just took her over and just destroyed it. He was in trouble trying to outrun the blue truck, and Mark Hall just took it over. He gave it just all there was to give.
Yeah, I had actually forgot about the rollover in Memphis until I was doing some research for this show. I believe it was Mark behind the wheel there that rolled that truck over, so they had to bring this truck to this event. And I got to tell you, it still looks like it's one of those trucks that could definitely be competitive out there on the circuit, and it's one of those trucks that you would expect to do well in this lineup.
Yeah, and they have a relationship with Smokecraft as well. The Hall brothers do, where they run some of the Jerky Maker and Bulldozer bodies throughout the rest of this 1997 season. We'll see this truck again later in the year, I believe in Beaumont and in Indianapolis. But, getting back to this Memphis crash, this was the week prior. It was kind of the dry run for Motor Madness in terms of their recording style and a lot of the other stuff. And it also gave them the opportunity to get a lot of B-roll for the interlacing shots for this week's episode. So they did the tape show first in Memphis. I want to say it was the last episode that aired before the finals at Indy in terms of the actual air date. And then this here on January 10th, 1997, the first live broadcast on TNN.
Let's talk about our broadcast team here. There are really 4 major names as far as the broadcast team here. In studio, we'll talk about them first. We've got Randy Pemberton and Katie Haas. Randy Pemberton, and that name might jump out to you as a NASCAR name because Robin Pemberton is a former crew chief for former crew chief for Rusty Wallace, Mark Martin, and Kyle Petty. His brother Ryan was a crew chief for David Ruderman back in the day, and his brother Roman used to be a spotter for Dale Jarrett. The name Pemberton and NASCAR goes hand in hand, really. I believe Robin was actually director of NASCAR at one point, a VP of competition.
He's famous for saying boys have at it, and the Pemberton name has got NASCAR covered from all corners. So it's good to see an established motorsports journalist, TV person, if you will, here kind of headlining and launching this first show of Motor Madness, along with our friend Katie Haas from TNN.
Yeah, Katie is honestly, I believe, in the monster truck circle, is more famous for being abducted, and Dusty Rhodes had to go out and try and find her baby.
Yeah, and Katie was, I think, more on the country music side and kind of leveraged that deal into some motorsports stuff every now and then where they did some cross promotion, but she was a stalwart on TNN. I believe she also hosted Primetime Country, which this show was replacing. So there's at least a familiar face for those who are regularly tuning in on a Friday night here on TNN.
Yep, tuning in at this hour. Hey, you've still got the familiar face of Katie Haas. Our arena broadcasters, Ralph Shaheen and Mike Galloway. Mike Galloway needs no introduction in the monster truck circle. Quite frankly, neither does Ralph Shaheen. Ralph has made a living off of broadcasting Supercross for Feld Motorsports in the last few number of years. But here, he's a NASCAR pit guy, kind of. He's also flirting around with some different forms of motorsports. It's nice to have his expertise on our broadcast as well.
Ralph is a true motorsports, personality in terms of covering all kinds of motorsports.
Jack of all trades.
Yeah, he's been doing motocross since the early 90s. He was in Circle Track with TNN and doing a lot of stuff with Prime, I think it was Prime Sports. He did some broadcasts with them as well throughout the 90s, which is Regional Sports Network. And we've got the monster trucks here. Again, we talked about Supercross already. He does that for many more years. He's done just about all of it. And he, I believe, owns Speed Sport now, which is a motorsports news outlet. So Ralph's still involved in the motorsports industry. And I've exchanged a little bit with him on Twitter every now and then. And he has some really fond memories of these days working on Motor Madness, especially with the professor, Mike Galloway.
Now, this is the other thing about Des Moines here. This is very early in the year, Matt. It's negative 56 wind chill outside in Des Moines. Sheer cold. Even the indoors, you're going to see some breakage on these vehicles. Even when we're all inside and we're in this nice, quote-unquote, warm building, you're still going to see some breakage on these trucks possibly. And that's something that they start the show talking about.
Randy, I'd love to welcome you to the frozen tundra of Des Moines, Iowa, but I can't. It's so cold here in Iowa, even the tundra won't grow. The wind chill factor today in Des Moines was minus 56. No joke. But I got to welcome in the professor of truckology, Mike Galloway. Mike, how is this bitter cold temperature going to affect our monster trucks and pro arena trucks tonight?
Make a lot of difference in the truck. The cast iron just becomes brittle like glass. They told me earlier that you could go out and pull the plug out of the rear end. The grease really wouldn't run out of it. It wouldn't go down to the ground. So they've been inside most of the day. They've warmed up. But from time to time during the evening, you've got to open the doors, and they'll bring trucks in. They'll clear out the air. The thing about it is the temperature last year was 5 degrees on the floor. It'll make a big difference. Breakage could be big.
Really could be a problem. We're going to make a little history tonight as well. Not only is it the first time for TNN's Motor Madness live on a Friday night, but it's the first time monster trucks have ever been live on national television, and we'll bring it all to you from here in Des Moines.
For sure. I mean, we're up here in Des Moines, Iowa, the upper Midwest, and it's the second week of January. It's going to be cold. Back in the TNT days, we had our friend, our favorite announcer from those days, Dick Leake, out in front of the St. Paul Civic Center with negative temperatures there the first week of January up in Minnesota. And here we are in Des Moines, and it's the same thing many years later. It's cold outside, but we're going to bring the heat up on the track and in terms of competition.
A segment that I liked here at the beginning of the show was Men on the Street, a segment about monster trucks. And my favorite quote is, "If I say the word Bigfoot, what comes to your mind?" And the man replies, "My mother-in-law."
Yeah. I guess they went into uptown Charlotte there and got a little bit of footage of talking to folks on the street, which was pretty cool. And I like these little vignettes that they would do as part of TNN. They really did a good job in terms of the production, the on-location work that they did. They always went and got those stories and the shots that it seems like the companies now really either don't have the budget for or don't feel is necessary. And I think it adds an extra flavor to the broadcast.
Speaking of flavor added to the broadcast, everybody in NASCAR knows the name Eli Gold. He's introduced right here. It's a huge get for the show, but he really doesn't talk about monster trucks. We can move on from there, honestly. He does have interviews with Kyle Petty a little bit throughout this show. Again, another thing we can kind of skip over, but at the same time, got to acknowledge his presence on here. Eli Gold was somebody that back in the day, if you watch NASCAR, you knew his name.
If you watched it on TV or if you listened on MRN radio, I mean, Eli is a true legend, a great NASCAR broadcaster for decades and decades, and he was really the connection to the outside motorsports world with some of these feature interviews that they would do to fill some of the time in between the segments in the live broadcast here in the studio in Charlotte.
Yep. Ralph and Mike are in there. They're going to talk about the pro arena trucks just a little bit. They'll lead into a segment all about Dan Patrick's wild accident that was in Bloomsburg, Pennsylvania. And then Dan Patrick's going to be interviewed by the fifth member of this team, I guess you could say. His name is Walt Yarbrough, and he's somebody that I couldn't really find all that much information on. I will say, though, I wasn't quite as much of a fan of his pit reporting as I have been of some other guys that we've talked about on this show.
Yeah, they used him for a couple of these episodes, and then I think they kind of replaced him with Dave Burns and some of the other guys. But he was certainly an energetic guy. I kind of like a few of the quips that he makes, but he does stumble over his words every now and then, and I'm not sure why they decided to get rid of him if it was for that reason. But, I mean, I don't necessarily dislike his style. I found it a little bit different and refreshing, but it certainly was something not the norm in terms of a pit reporter at that time.
King of the Hill points are explained right here. 60 points on the table for each racing bracket, and then going down for each finishing position. Second would get 50, third 40, etc., etc. I like the format, but it does kind of level it out to where there could be a tie at some point.
There could, and that may come into play in a couple of these episodes in 97, I believe, because depending on how the brackets fall, you know, if you can do good in one side or the other in the obstacle course or the straight line racing, if you can win one of them and do kind of well in the other, you've at least got a good shot to go ahead and win King of the Hill for that night.
Tim Hall shown buckling into Executioner, as well as David Morris and Equalizer. Matt, it's 1997. Equalizer is now 8 years old and is still kicking out here on this circuit. And here it is going against a truck that should be, on paper, better than it.
Well, on paper, maybe. You know, we're talking, by the way, we're over a half hour into the broadcast now with commercials, and we still haven't seen any live motorsports action. You know, granted, this is episode 1.
Well, when they started the show, they're actually finishing a party in the pits kind of atmosphere there.
So we've got, you know, the segments that are laid out ahead of time, and they knew that they were producing this show at a certain time, and I'm not sure, Josh, you live out that direction. Is Iowa in Central Time?
Honestly, I wouldn't even be able to tell you.
I'm guessing it is because we're past 8:30 now here, Eastern Time in terms of the broadcast. And I'm guessing this show probably had a 7:30 start time for the live event local. So that's how kind of it went back then. And then you've got a 3-hour run. So we're a half hour into the TV broadcast. Now we're actually getting into the live actual competition. It's time to make these trucks go race. And getting back to your point of Executioner versus Equalizer. And boy, we got to make sure you enunciate properly on those names because it's easy to get them trickied up a little bit here. But the Executioner truck, a little bit newer, as you said, compared to Equalizer. But boy, David Morris was just always a standard performer in that truck, no matter where he was in the country.
This truck in mid-90s Equalizer is just, it's like we were talking earlier about Ralph Shaheen. This truck is a jack of all trades. It can do anything, and it specialized on these really tight turning courses, and that's what we're going to see right here. The starter is kind of located a little awkwardly right here. He's at the center of the track atop of a pro stadium truck's finish line jump. He waves a flag, and then he quickly gets the hell out of the way, basically. They've got no lights in this arena. They've just got a man holding a green flag, and he needs to get out of the way as quick as possible right here.
Yeah, it's not exactly the safest situation here, but this is how they do it for the whole season in 1997. The green flag waves, and in this case of the first run, you know, we'll see that the flagman barely gets across the floor before he gets run over by the Equalizer truck. See, I'm stumbling over my words already, but let's go ahead and describe our track here for the obstacle course, Josh.
Well, they start on the outside of the arena. It's kind of like a modified Chicago style, honestly, if you would look at that way. They start on the outside. We were talking last week with Minneapolis. They were starting on the inside, or excuse me, a couple weeks ago with Minneapolis now, where they were starting on the inside of the arena, or the inside of the stadium. Now they're starting on the outside of the arena, and they're working their way in, and they're doing the chase inside this tight circle right here over about 5 cars each. And it's not a cakewalk, honestly, for this track. This is a very tight track, and it's going to benefit those guys that have some very good steering on their trucks.
Yeah, and for those keeping score at home, Chicago style in small arena, good. Chicago style in stadium, bad. And we've got a small arena here. And I really like how they present the show here. We talked about it way back in our Providence 92 episode, where we have an end zone camera shot for this Chicago style obstacle course racing. And it really allows the viewer at home to be able to see the entire track without being right at the finish line necessarily, but you can see most of what's happening and who's ahead and what's going on. And then if it's a close finish, they'll show it in the replay on the side shot. But I like that we get the entire races here on the end zone shot, no movement of the camera. You see all the action as it unfolds.
And that's something that you can't get inside of a stadium. You can't show all of the action. You're constantly close up on those trucks. Here, they don't need to be close up on the trucks because the camera can be close up on the track and catch all of the action with that stationary shot.
Yeah, because the arena is the proper size for that track, my friend.
There we go. See, Matt knows what he's talking about, ladies. That's why he's on this show. Morris is actually the first over the cars in this setup perfectly. I can't even talk today. Meant to start off right there, folks, with the whole shot going to Executioner, but Morris is the first truck over the cars and around the corner. And honestly, the truck just turns better. It's set up. It's a really tight looking truck, Equalizer. And by that, I mean you don't see a lot of body roll with the truck. It's going around the corner. It's sticking to the track. Whereas Executioner, you see a little bit more body roll in the truck, and Tim's kind of having a little bit I'm fumbling over my words too. A little bit of a hard time controlling the truck around this course.
It's the Executioner and Equalizer conundrums got you.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what it is. I'm tongue twisted all over the place.
So, yeah, I agree here. Equalizer looks really stable. He's got the coilovers with the pretty stiff springs on him. He's running the 3-link up front with the panhard bar, 4-link rear end. But the Executioner just 4-linked with coilovers as well. Similar on paper type of setup, but you see how much stiffer the Equalizer is in the corners. It just holds steady, holds stable, and we'll take note of the second jump on the first side of the track here over the car. Morris kind of throws the rear steer early, and he cuts real nice and tight around that first turning pole, almost turns on top of the car. And that's really what gives him the advantage here. So at half track, Morris is ahead, and then the problems start for Executioner really over the first set of cars. The rear steer kind of kicks the wrong direction.
Yeah, rear steer's kicking the wrong direction for Tim, and it seems like he's chasing the truck for the rest of the pass here. Executioner is out of shape in the last turn, trying to correct to maintain a legal pass. In doing so, the rear steer hit the ramp a little bit crooked, launched the truck in an awkward angle, and Tim lands hard on the left front, barely in the trunk of the last car. The dirt behind the trunk doesn't give way, and that bends that lower 4-link. The truck just collapses over onto its left side. First rollover on national television goes to Tim Hall on the Executioner. Hard wreck, though, for the Executioner machine. As I said, digging into that last car's trunk, and then the dirt just does not give.
Well, the first ever live monster truck race being brought to you as a part of TNN's Motor Madness, the first of many live Friday nights of competition we're going to be bringing you all year long here on the Nashville Network as we continue to expand our live motor racing coverage for you. Walt Yarbrough, Mike Galloway, and Ralph Shaheen, we're ready to bring it all to you. I hope it's warmer where you are. If it's not, we're about to heat it. Here we go.
All brothers leave well with the truck. You've got to land with the tires cut to the left on both sides of it. This is the first time they'll come back. They've got to go back to the respective set of cars before the finish line. And let's take a look.
Looks like Equalizer was... Whoa, we got a big problem for the Executioner.
Executioner, and that is something that is just unbelievable. I've never seen this kind of thing happen. But what happened, he hooked the left front tire, and I'm sure he hooked the left front tire in the trunk of one of the cars. Now, he's coming out of the truck. I'm sure he's not injured. There he is. Crawling out of the truck, looking over the top of it. Let's take a look at this. Now, watch the left front tire on this red car. He's crossed up a little bit, got the back tires, but see how it hooked inside there and got When it got into the trunk, it slowed him down a little bit. Then he hit the berm and rolls right over on the side. First race of the year, first time live TV.
Walt Yarbrough is down there with our driver. How is he, Walt?
Fine, Tim. What in the world happened?
I don't know. I think the rear steering come around too far. Looks like we blew a tire off the wheel or something. So, man, that's the way it goes. You know, this is racing. It's tough here and small arena trying to do well. But, oh, well, looks like it's not too bad. We'll fix her and try to be back later.
So he's going to try to get the truck back together. Back up to you guys.
Yeah, and it's the only run on the top of my head that I can think of that really this kind of thing happens, where the truck kind of shovels itself into the end of the cars and the trunk collapses. The tire butts up against that dirt ramp behind the car, and it just folds the suspension up underneath the truck and throws the truck over. It's a decent little cage shot here for Tim Hall. I mean, he lands pretty hard on the roof compared to just laying the truck over, you know, in a normal rollover type situation. And it's impressive that there wasn't a whole lot more damage done to the Executioner Chevrolet.
Yeah, and I mean, the way that truck hit, that's a lot of suspension components that went underneath of it. Not as much body damage as you would possibly think, though. They did a fairly good job on keeping that body secure on the truck, so they didn't have to worry about that portion of it as much. But I don't think that we're going to see Executioner the rest of the night with that hard hit. I did find it funny, though. Mike Galloway, of all people, says, "I've never seen this kind of thing happen." And I'm thinking, well, to myself, I'm like, I'm pretty sure you probably have at some point, Mike. But anyway, we see a lot of officials running out here onto the track as Tim is getting out of the truck.
Well, the thing that Mike goes on to describe as never seeing happen is what I was kind of alluding to, where the truck folds itself into that car and, locking up in the trunk like that.
Mm-hmm.
Surely Mike had seen rollovers and crashes at that point, but Mike jumps on this point pretty quick that the trunk collapsing of the car is really what caused this accident.
Yeah. And Tim Hall, in his interview right here, he is not happy. He sounds very disappointed. He's definitely not looking forward to trying to fix that one, I assume, just looking at it. He just does not look happy at all in his interview.
Can't blame him for being unhappy, because now they've crashed both of their trucks in back-to-back weekends.
Yeah, 2 of their main race trucks are now on the trailer, and they are going to have to get those things back together before the next weekend. I mean, these guys, full independent monster truckers at this point. They are trying to make some money off of these shows, and at this moment in time, they got 2 trucks that they have severely wounded, and they've got the rest of first quarter to go yet.
Yeah, we're talking the second weekend of the year. Thankfully, the Executioner #1 truck here that Tim's driving, they kind of, we'll see it later in the show toward the end, where they're kind of replacing the 4-link bar, and I don't know if they had the tire back on the rim by that point or not, but overall damage I don't think was really too bad. They popped the tire back on the rim and then replaced the 4-link bar and maybe touch the body up a little bit, and you're kind of okay to go. The #2 truck, their race truck, it got tore up real bad, ripped the whole body off the thing in Memphis. So they've got a lot of work ahead of them, to get ready for the rest of that first quarter, as you said. But back then it wasn't common to be, crashing the trucks this often. I don't know. I'm trying to remember a time. It would have been a couple years probably since the Hall brothers had crashed on TV, all the way back in Canfield in '93. Mark took a tumble, and then I think they may have broke some suspension components in Canfield a couple years later. But in terms of rollovers, it had been 4 years on TV.
Yeah, it had been a while since they had rolled anything over. And here, what a way to roll it over. Your first live television broadcast, the first monster truck race ever on live television, broadcasted to a live audience, and the first thing they get is that kind of action.
And talk about now screwing up your whole show flow. We've got a timed out, live event that we're trying to produce here for live TV. It throws a wrench in the plans right off the bat for the people in the production studio.
Oh, yeah, and I think that they're chasing that the rest of the night. You can sense a little bit of a sense of urgency in some of the way the broadcast goes. At least I could.
Yeah, we take a commercial break here. We come back. The truck's back up on all fours again. And what's nice is it gives the guys a chance to discuss the safety features in the trucks, including the RII. We're a big proponent of RII explanations here for the fans at home on the Retro Monster Truck Reviews. So at least it gives them some chance to fill some time and give the fans at home that are maybe new to this some information about the sport.
Yep. One thing, too, we get as we come back from a commercial break, Samson with muscles bulging. And if you look in the background, hey, man, that's Gene Patterson standing back there. Old Colt Cobra is here with Dan Patrick this weekend.
Yeah, at this time, Gene is working for Dan and helping him out a good bit. He'll end up driving the truck at an event or two. I think he drives it in Denver, if I'm not mistaken, on the USA Tour. So Gene is really, really, good friends with Dan Patrick and helping him out a good bit throughout this season, getting him ready to go for this big TV tour.
Yep. In the other lane, though, we got Julie Christensen and Misbehavin'. Honestly, awesome name for a monster truck, by the way. Misbehavin'. I love that name. I wish somebody would actually take a look at that truck and bring it back. If I remember correctly, it had the Tasmanian Devil on the side of it.
It's a good-looking truck, and was that a Ford Ranger I see body on that? So it's looking good. And Craig and Julie both running kind of the smaller pickup style bodies. Craig's running an S10 and Julie with the Ranger. So both trucks out of Utah looking really good. But unfortunately, the Misbehaving truck going to be no match for the big arms of the Samson here in round number one.
Completely outmatched here. Samson with a big hole shot. As this time, the flagman waits until Dan Patrick gets past to run behind the truck and off the track. A little safer procedure right there. Dan is around the first corner and well ahead and just builds his lead over Julie. Dan takes a relatively easy first round win here. And then Gene gets some more love from Mike Galloway. He mentions the fact that he's a former Bigfoot driver and knows his way around monster trucks from front to back, or in his case, from fang to tail.
Yeah, he's got them all covered here. So, Samson just with a super, super smooth run. I mean, I can't imagine getting around that track any much better in terms of a textbook look. Getting through the corners nice and smooth, putting the power down where he needs to. Dan Patrick going to move on to round number two, and the flagman, he learned from that first race that he doesn't want to shake hands with danger too much going through those.
He doesn't want to do that. That's your new catchphrase. We're going to make a T-shirt. Shake hands with danger. Retro Monster Truck Review.
Well, when you see biceps bulging on the side of a monster truck, it could be one truck only, and that is the mighty Samson truck of Dan Patrick.
Dan Patrick is a great, great monster truck builder, but you know what? He's a good driver also.
Now, he's got his hands full with the fastest lady in the bunch. This is a Misbehaving truck, which Julie Christensen pilots.
Out of Clearfield, Utah. Came quite a ways to race this little truck. Blown 460, maybe not the horsepower that Patrick puts out, but this lady can handle the truck. She does a great job with it.
You and I got to talk about our definitions of little, because I see 1,200 horsepower. That's no little truck to me.
1,400 would be a little better.
Okay,
that's what you're always looking to step up just a little bit. And there's Mr. Patrick.
A real crowd favorite. 560 cubic inches of Hemi power coming out of that 96 Chevy. 1,350 horses as we get underway.
Dan runs a dry block. He doesn't run any water in it. He told me earlier he ran it for a few minutes. It never came off of the peg. Well, that's 100 degrees. Dan Patrick looks like he's got this, well, hopefully in the bag and holds everything together.
He sure does. Dan Patrick real quick here tonight as Julie Christensen finishes it off. You see him stand on the brakes as all the weight shifts to the front of the big Samson truck. The Chevy looking strong here tonight.
Bulldozer Dragon Slayer up next here, and talk about a unique matchup. We've got a guy that slays dragons, and in the other lane, a giant bull.
Hey, this is where we see the real fandom of Ralph Shaheen come out for the Bulldozer for the first time. And, Ralph and Mike really played off each other really well in the booth. And if you've ever met Mike in person, you know that Galloway's running at about maybe 30% for these TV broadcasts, and he's holding back a lot of things that he would normally say in terms, in order to stay professional. He is a hilarious guy, and he's always got a one-liner queued up. But Ralph is kind of poking and prodding at Mike a little bit here, wanting to get him on Team Bulldozer with the 3D truck. And, we go back and forth a lot through the show with Mike saying, I'm more of a fan of the traditional monster trucks, but I really like the back and forth that these two guys have throughout both seasons of TNN Motor Madness.
One thing that always stuck out to me about this Bulldozer was the horns. The truck almost, if you looked at it head on, it looked like it saw a ghost. And that question I have is Dale Harris in the building?
Well, Dale's not here, but the horns are at full mast, we'll say.
There you go. This would be a great ad for Blue Chew. Anyway, no, we're not going to go there. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen.
We're looking for sponsors on the retro.
Hey, yeah, hey, if you want to sponsor us, go right ahead. We can look in. One of the things that Ralph says here that made me chuckle a little bit was Bulldozer obviously is his favorite. He says, we have in Bulldozer camera. We're going to go on board with the big steer right here. I love the shot that we have right there on the inboard. And the whole shot's actually going to go to Bulldozer as he angles the two-car stack up, sets up for the corner. But Craig hits that straightaway and hits the rear steering. Gives him a little bit of a lead coming out of the next turn.
Yeah, and coming out of the final turn again, we see Guy kind of get in full crab mode here, kind of getting over the cars clean, thankfully, going to get the win. But the in-cab shot, it turns out it's really inside a Dragon Slayer, not inside a Bulldozer.
See, I was going to wait for you to point that out.
Yeah, we see on the replay that Bulldozer's in the other lane there, but you know, they're excited. And granted, they're just watching the monitors as well. So, and they may have a director in their ear. Maybe they got wrong information, but
some great description too, by the way. I hate to cut you off. Some great descriptions by Mike Galloway as far as Craig inside there controlling the rear steering. You can see his arm in camera angle controlling it with the switch. Great description from Mike Galloway all the way through this race when he's on the onboard, and you can see that.
Oh yeah, you know, Mike really is the true guy that's been engrossed in this sport for many, many years, doing announcing and TV broadcasts as well. So he is the true analyst of this broadcast. Right
here, though, it looks like Bulldozer's going to end up getting the win over Dragon Slayer. And I got to tell you, a little bit of a surprise there, because if you look at Bulldozer, it's a much taller and a little bit wider truck, and you would not expect that to excel on these tighter tracks here. Dragon Slayer is a bit smaller. You would have thought it would have negotiated around the corners a little bit better. Not the case. Bulldozer goes on and takes the win.
The next set of trucks getting set to go now. Dragon Slayer is the one you're looking at there. 1996 Chevy S10, 525 cubic inches, a Donovan-built engine, 1,600 horsepower.
Now we're talking about horsepower.
That's a big truck.
That is Craig Christensen, Julie's husband. This is the little S10 truck, new S10 club cab truck. This truck really works well.
Now, I got to tell you, this is my favorite.
I know.
The Bulldozer, man, this is a great-looking truck.
Guy Wood out of Missouri. You love this truck.
I do. I just love the look of this thing. And guess what? We got in Bulldozer camera. Look at this. We're going on board with the big steer.
Well, this should be truly a lot of fun because, you know, where else could you see what actually goes on but inside the truck? Guy Wood ready to go. Brand new, first time out for this body, Ralph. Well, it's close off the line. Let's take a look halfway point. Maybe Guy Wood just a little bit in the lead. Dragon Slayer's going to need to stand on it. The Bulldozer looks, still just a little bit out. You line the poles up. Guy Wood got it crossways a little bit, but it's a Guy Wood's win.
How about those big horns? Come on now, Mike. You got to love that horn. Well, look at that thing.
I like it, Ralph. And it's a Chevrolet. You can see the design on it. I like it. But I'm not just crazy about it like you are, you know. I'm not planning on having one built to drive on the streets next week.
Well, we're going to go on board with all those horsepowers and the big horns. Look, what's he doing inside the cockpit?
He's working on his rear steering. He's operating the rear steering and operates off of a lever down on the bottom of it. He's finessing it around the corner. Now he's got his hands back on it. Goes to the rear steering again. Watch him. Now this brings the back of it around. It's electrical control through hydraulics. Now he just has to stand on the motor, up over the cars, about 5 cars. Look how soft that landing was.
The front-facing four-link setup, I think, is one of the better executions of that style on turning courses, the way that Guy Wood had this truck set up. You see the barefoot trucks over the years, and they would really hike that inside tire up and get all out of shape. But Guy's truck stays really stable, and man, does that thing turn tight for how long it is. And you could tell that Guy's been running this truck for a number of years because he has that thing absolutely dialed in. He's running primarily with USA Motorsports throughout these years. You know, previously the truck was called the Jerky Maker with the red Chevy body on it, and he was used to setting the truck up for these kinds of tight, small arena Chicago-style courses, and the experience here shows.
Walt Yarbrough's first appearance here, he interviews Greg. Oh, wait, I'm sorry. It's Craig standing right there. He gets his name wrong first thing, and that's an immediate strike one for me. I got to tell you, he asked him about the incident with Executioner, which Craig would know nothing about, but he does say it makes him very nervous, talks about him being an independent, and then Walt ends the interview kind of strangely. He says that, here you go, Greg Christensen, the first victim of the Smokecraft Bulldozer. I thought that was kind of a little bit of a disrespectful way to end the interview.
Real big tip of the TNN Racing visor to the fans here in Des Moines for braving the elements to get out here. Walt Yarbrough had to come, but he is going to talk to the driver of the Dragon Slayer. Walt?
Down here with Greg Christensen. Greg, the first man to fall victim to the new Bulldozer, but I tell you what, the accident must have had your attention.
Yeah, it did. Anytime you see a truck roll over, it makes you real nervous. A lot of these guys have a lot of big sponsors on the line. I'm a privateer. If I crash my stuff, I got to go back home and repair it. I still got a lot of shows in front of me. I'm better off to use my head and pay the price and go out the first round. You never know, I might be able to come back as a fast loser.
All right, well, that's Greg Christensen down there with the Dragon Slayer, the first victim of the Smokecraft Bulldozer.
Hey, Walt, we can see your breath. Is it getting a little cool down there on the floor?
Yes, sir. Mr. Sheen, it's getting very cold down here.
It's not so bad. I mean, he is the first victim.
He's not wrong, but at the same time, this guy is telling you something, and you just completely negate it by saying, by the way, you lost.
You lose. Good day, sir.
I will give him the zonk on the getting the name wrong, though, for sure. But what I find cool is, I mean, we're talking about the cold here in Des Moines. You can see these guys' breath while they're doing the interview. It's chilly down there on the floor.
It's definitely chilly on the floor. Yeah, and I do remember at the beginning of the show, I want to say it was Mike Galloway that pointed out that the year before in '96, it was only 5 degrees on the floor there in Des Moines.
Yeah, and we're talking the outside wind chill is 56 below zero, ladies and gentlemen. So up in the upper Midwest, I don't know how you guys do it through the winters like that with that cold. I mean, I go to the Hall of Fame in Indiana in November, and it's like, 35 and a bit breezy, and I'm like ready to light the building on fire because I'm so cold. So I can't imagine how you guys handle it up in that part of the country. It's really, really cold, and hey, they're enjoying the show here in the USA Motorsports Motor Spectacular.
That they are. Also, lots of blankets and staying inside in that nice warm heat. That always helps. Our semifinal round here on the obstacle course begins with Samson and Equalizer, easily the two favorites in this field.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, they're the two top names that we've seen on TV here before, and I'm going to take a step back real quick. Where this is the big part of this show is the variety of coverage that we're going to get throughout Motor Madness, and the breakout star, I have to say, of these Monster Truck Challenge shows has got to be the Pro Arena trucks. They become a fan favorite, and we get to see our first look here at the Pro Arena trucks on TV, and things aren't quite as dialed in as they would be later in the season, but some notable runs here. We've got Jim Hopkins blowing a tire off. He would end up going to be the TV king over the next couple years on all these arena truck shows. And my favorite guy, Dan Sutter's Tough and Ugly, the big K5 Blazer, the black and orange, making all kind of noise all over the arena. And then Rory Fisher with the Toyota SR5 4-cylinder. Man, him and Brozovic had a rivalry all year long.
That they did. I was going to touch on that a little bit later in the show as far as the Pro Arena trucks go. In this first round, though, my two favorites are the two guys that ends up 1 and 2 in points. That's Rory Fisher with that Toyota SR5 that you mentioned. And then, of course, Joe Brozovic and Brozo's Bronco, as they used to call it on television. I just love that paint scheme. And Brozovic always seemed to just have a little bit of a one-up on Rory, always on television. Every now and then, though, you'd Rory sneak up and steal a win from him. But Joe had, I believe, 2 more cylinders in the tank to work with. He had a V8 versus, I believe, Rory. Actually, I take that back. Rory had a 4-cylinder. Yeah, he had a 4-banger in that thing. So Rory is going to keep up the speed around the corners, whereas Brozovic can keep the speed up on the straightaways. It was a great battle all the way to the very end between those two.
It made for good television because you had two totally different vehicles, and both guys were awesome, and they played up the rivalry on TV as well. They traveled a lot together. My dad had a Toyota pickup when I was growing up, so I kind of always rooted for Rory Fisher out of that matchup, I have to say, just with the family connection. But what I found interesting is there's a competitor in round 1 named Russell Klein. But it's not the Russ Klein that owned USA Motorsports. Just by happenstance, I guess, that another guy by the same name ends up competing at the event.
Well, there you go. Hey, stranger things have happened in the world of monster trucks and Pro Arena trucks racing. One thing, too, to point out about Rory's truck, if you go back and you look at this thing, there's really not much of a front end on it, and it's got a flatbed on the back, taking on a fully decked out Bronco pretty much the whole season. So shout out to Rory Fisher for keeping that thing going all season.
He made it work. And, you know, we come back from commercial here after a couple segments here in the studio. We get Eli Gold doing a segment about Daytona testing. Robbie Gordon setting the fast lap in Daytona for Team Sabco. My, how things change. And the Pontiac doing well there in Daytona testing. Now we've got no practice, no qualifying, just race day in NASCAR, at least for this year. So looking forward to getting things back to normal for next year. And we come back with Doug DeMocus, the Wheelie King, and doing his, you know, kind of, I think this is his motorcycle routine that he does with the largest rear sprocket I've ever seen on a motorcycle. And Walt Yarbrough is down on the floor, and we're up to 32 degrees now with the doors closed.
Wow, 32 degrees. Hey, it's a little warmer in there than it was the last year on the floor. I can tell you that much.
Yeah.
Like I said earlier, though, our semifinal round starting with Samson and Equalizer. Like I said, two trucks, probably the two favorites going into this evening's racing competition. Whole shot's going to go to Samson, but Morris has an absolutely fantastic turn right here. Apexes the corner brilliantly, gets a bit of a lead on Patrick, and then Dan, he knows he's got to come back. He pushes it a little too close to the pole, taking it out, and then hands the win over to Equalizer over the last jump.
You are looking at the Equalizer, which is going to go up against Samson here in round number 2 of the obstacle course. There's those big biceps of Samson.
Dan Patrick and David Morris. This is going to be a great race. Not a good race. I mean a great race. These guys are both close. Look how he comes off of it.
The turn back.
He's ahead of Patrick. I do believe it this time, but right now it's going to be to the final round. Patrick takes out a pole.
I think Equalizer put him away.
I do too. David Morris, even though Patrick took out the pole, got a little short shot on it, Morris comes back, hammers it. He's there. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, you see how well these guys are getting around this tight little floor. And, man, Patrick coming back hard. I think Equalizer got that good jump over that car again, turning on top of it, getting into that first corner. I think that made Dan push a little bit too hard, and that hands the win over to David Morris here to go into the finals.
Yep, Morris going to go into the final round. Going to take on the winner of our next race, which is Bulldozer and Dragon Slayer coming back as fast loser. And if anybody knows Craig Christensen, I'm pretty sure, and I can't quote him, but I'm pretty sure that at the end of that interview with Walt Yarbrough, he spiked him up just a little bit and brought him into the competition a little bit. I don't know that he liked being called the first victim of Bulldozer here. Craig could be a little bit ticked off by that. Ralph loves to mention how much Bulldozer, how much he loves Bulldozer, and how Mike is more of a traditionalist.
Yeah, the back and forth continues, and they give their little quips back and forth. And, you know, it's a rematch here. We've got the Bulldozer and Dragon Slayer going up again. And, you know, this time the outcome is a little bit different.
Yeah, much like the first race, though, Guy has the better first turn, but it is not by much more here. Craig is with him going into the second corner, and then Guy obliterates a turning pole with the Bulldozer, and it hands over the win to the Dragon Slayer. Ralph incorrectly calls Bulldozer the winner, and honestly, it's a little bit annoying with his commentary about the truck, but at the same time, you got to love it. He's pushing that truck as hard as they can, and you got to love the fact that the sponsor is probably sitting there watching this with a big smile on their face, knowing their truck's getting the plug.
Here it comes.
You know, Ralph, I like it.
You know, no. You are a monster truck traditionalist. That's what it comes down to. If there is such a thing like Galloway, you are a monster truck traditionalist, and that is okay. Mike Galloway likes the more normal-looking, truck-looking type of monster truck, such as Equalizer or Dragon Slayer. Personally, I like the show. That's a good look at Craig Christensen's Dragon Slayer, but that, to me, has monster truck written all over it. Bulldozer.
Well, it's a big bulldozer.
I love the horns, man. And the ears on the C-pillar.
Yeah, you like it all.
Yeah, I go for the whole thing.
Well, we're inside. Would this be inside the head of the bull?
Actually, I believe the camera might be inside the bull. Yeah,
it's inside the head of the bull.
Yeah, inside the head of the bull. Yeah.
Do you like the dragon or do you like the bull? Well, let's see who comes out on top. Right now, it's the bull by about a half a truck.
He was quick in round number 1, don't forget.
Well, he has been quick all night. Oh, no.
Here goes the pole.
Took the pole out. They're getting off the finish line.
I think my bull's going on to the next round.
Bull may. Well, I'm going to have to see this. I mean, these guys, we'll get an official call from the...
Look at the fake hair, man. You got to love the... See the ears back there on the feed pillar?
You're loving every bit of it, aren't you, Ralph?
Oh, for sure. You know, they're backing the whole USA Motorsports effort. It's kind of the title sponsor, and that, you know, I'm not sure exactly how the business dealings worked with it, but this is, you could almost consider this a company truck, more or less, at this point. It was a design that was, you know, worked in conjunction with the sponsor and the promoter. So, Bulldozer getting the rub from our friends up in the booth, but Dragon Slayer ends up moving on. There's some question as to, you know, whether Bulldozer disqualified due to that pole, and we get our answer when Equalizer comes out to pull up against the line, and Dragon Slayer is already there, ready to go for the finals.
One thing to point out too here is if you're listening to our guys in the booth, they don't really know like who the winner is right off the bat, but on the floor, if you can hear the live event announcer is calling the winners correctly. It's just not getting to the booth quick enough. So they're sitting up there really debating on everything, and they don't know what the people on the floor know.
Yeah, I mean, Ralph and Mike are there with earpieces in their ears, so they're hearing what the director's telling them, and maybe also they might have had a line in for maybe the event manager or something, you know, to give them information as well, but they probably couldn't hear what was coming over the PA system, I'm sure.
That they could not. As we go to our obstacle course final, we got Equalizer and Dragon Slayer, as I said earlier. It appears Dragon Slayer has slayed the bull, says Ralph Shaheen. And you got to know that hurt him just a little bit to say that.
Yeah, Ralph's a little upset that the bull's out of it. He'll be back for straight line, though. We'll see how he does. And we've got a Chevrolet matchup. Actually, 2 S10s in the final. Is that like the only time this has ever happened?
It might be the only time it's ever happened. I mean, unless Jim Kohler strangely brought out the S10 and put it on 2 of his trucks back in the day, and they raced each other. That's about the only thing I could think of.
I need the results gurus out there to tell me on TV if we ever had another S10 versus S10 final.
Hey, get on that. If you're listening to this show and you're a results guru, kind of like Matt, go out there and find us the result of S10 versus S10. But I can tell you, this S10 battle right here is going to come right down to the wire. Equalizer is the favorite as far as I'm concerned going into this race, but Dragon Slayer gets the whole shot, but Equalizer is easily around that first turn ahead of him.
Yeah, and I'm rooting for Dragon Slayer as the 7-year-old kid here, because on all my tapes that I had as a kid, Equalizer always beat Bigfoot, and that always frustrated me to no end. So I'm really rooting for the Dragon Slayer to take the win here. And boy, halfway through the track, it doesn't look like I'm going to get my wish. But as we come through the last corner, some more live things happen on TV that we don't expect.
Yep, you don't expect it on live television. Craig lays into the throttle, has enough momentum to fly over the finish line first, while Equalizer just coasts towards the finish line. Don't know what happened in that last corner. The truck just completely stalls out for Equalizer, and it's going to hand the first ever televised monster truck win to Craig Christensen and Dragon Slayer.
In the obstacle course run, it will be Equalizer up against Dragon Slayer.
Good race. Very, very, very good race. David Morris, he has done this so many times. If you're going to talk about experience, David Morris probably has more years on the in the driving seat than the Dragon Slayer. Both the trucks have real good acceleration. They're both getting around the courses tightly. They know that they got to come off the turns with the wheels cut to the left to get around the tight course. We've seen a couple of that didn't make that. So it should, all in all, Ralph, I'd say it's going to be a great race. Not a good one, another great one.
Should be a great matchup as you go on board with the Dragon Slayer, ready to work those rear steers.
Up in the left-hand corner, you see the Equalizer pulling into stage. Morris is ready. There it is.
The Dragon ready to slay the Equalizers. Run away with the obstacle course final.
Boy, Equalizer is out by about a half a truck in that line. David Morris is just really doing a great job. Now probably a full truck length. This looks like a David Morris.
Oh, he died! The truck stalled. Equalizer had him in the gun sights. Mikey had him dead to rights.
It was there, but you know, as we've said so many times, it's what racing is all about. He's fired it up. It's going. It wasn't anything real disastrous on the truck, but there's your winner. Look at this. Equalizer moving. David, now watch the rear steering. He's operating that with that right hand and reaches up. makes the turn. Now, you've got to think that he's looking for David Morris as he looks to the left. Morris is at the finish line, just now getting to the cars, but Morris cannot cross the finish line.
Never, ever give up.
Yes, and he gets the win here. David Morris loses power out of the final corner. The guys in the booth really get excited about it. It makes for a good moment. David said he thinks he may have a fuel problem that's just due to the cold on this floor. I mean, these trucks don't often run in these kind of temperatures, especially outside, but even inside, we're down here around freezing, and you never know what could cause something to go wrong.
No, you never, ever know what's going to cause something to go wrong out there, especially in the frigid, cold air. I'm pulling a bit of a stretch here, but I called this as the shades of the 1976 Daytona 500 as David Morris plays the role of Richard Petty, not getting quite across the finish line. And Dragon Slayer shoots on to take the win.
Just a hair short.
Yep, just a hair short for Equalizer. The thing of it is, though, is he had a big enough lead that had that truck died as he was, say, coming over the jump, I think he would have won.
Oh, he certainly would have taken the win, and it's unfortunate for David here. You know, we get the interview with Walt, and he mentions the possible fuel problem, as I mentioned, but it's you know, he's getting a reprieve. He's going to come back for the drag racing as well. We start the points over, and we add them all up for the night, so we'll see how much better he can do in drag racing. He's going to get a bye run in run number 1 because Executioner's out. Now, here's the most important part of the broadcast, my friend. We go to a floor shot before we go back to the studio, and who do we see on the floor? It's not the digger disc. It's the Weezer guy.
Oh, the Weezer guy. These things have been around forever, by the way. If you ever go to a Monster Jam and you hear him talking about the digger disc, there's some inside baseball. They hire a specific guy to come into each venue and throw the digger disc. Somebody's getting paid to come to those events and throw that thing around as a professional.
I was doing some quick looking about this product. You know, this is obviously before they had named it the digger disc. It was a guy in Hawaii came up with this idea, got a patent, and he'd been selling these things at live events, sporting games, and so forth for years and years since the late 80s. And even back in the 80s, he had already sold over 500,000 of these things to unsuspecting schlups sitting in the grandstands. So, I mean, great to Rick Durker for coming up with an invention that kind of sells itself to the people. Boy, could you imagine if Billy Mays got a hold of one of them things? We'd have moved tens of millions of them.
Hi, Billy Mays here for the Weezer.
We come back from a commercial break right here, and we're going to get a big scoop from Kyle Petty. The news flash is that he's got a big mouth and can't drive. Anyway, we move on to drag racing round number 1 here. We got Samson and Misbehaving in round number 1, and I got to tell you, another big mismatch.
Yeah, and, you know, we're switching over from the obstacle course here to the side-by-side straight drag race, and this is something that I found interesting that I'll go into a personal story with. You know, we're talking a small arena tour here, and my local show was always a small arena. It always frustrated the heck out of me that when U.S. Hot Rod came to Pittsburgh, that they didn't do this kind of a format where they did Chicago style and straight line. I'm going, it's a hockey arena. They can do this there, you know, but just not quite enough room to meet their safety standards, I guess, at the time. Boy, I was so jealous of anybody that got the USA Motorsports shows and they got to see all this different kind of monster truck racing inside of their hometown. But, you know, we switch it up, 5 cars, straight line drag. The cars are in the middle of the floor, and I find interesting the hard camera positions kind of in between the finish line of the obstacle course and the straight line. They kind of parked it on that last car.
And I think they parked it there so they could have a good angle for both finish lines.
Yes, I would agree there. I think that's how they set it up, and it's kind of a good option for the finishes of the obstacle course, and then they also use that as the main camera angle for the drag racing.
Yep, and speaking of drag racing right here, Samson's going to get one heck of a hole shot and leave Misbehaving at the line, according to Ralph. And Dan Patrick's going to move into the semifinals here with a truck-length victory on this short straight-line track. That shows you the power of Samson right out of the gate right there.
All right, we're going to go drag racing with our monster trucks, of course. Those knuckles on the front meaning Samson back out up against the female, Misbehaving.
Diamond Dan Patrick go up against the beautiful Misbehaving truck, and should be good. Diamond needs Dan needs really hard on the throttle.
Left her at the lights.
It really does, because you see the trucks they actually start moving together. And then Samson just takes off, misbehaving, kind of just drives over the tops of the cars, whereas Dan
Samson almost clears them.
Almost clears them. The cantilevers drop out, catches that last car. But, I mean, on paper, could you do it any better than Dan does it right there?
No, you cannot. I don't even think if they would have had a Bigfoot in the arena right there that it would have touched Nan Patrick on this straight line course this evening. Bulldozer and Dragon Slayer is up next. A brief discussion here between Ralph and Mike about 3D bodies. Samson being one of the first, which leads into the discussion of Bulldozer. Ralph then points out those ears on the B pillars, and that was something that I always enjoyed looking at back in the day when I was a kid and you'd play Monster Truck Madness 2. That Bulldozer body was 3D rendered into that game, and it looked exactly like Bulldozer. It was a phenomenal job by the people in Microsoft that made that game.
Yeah, it was a cool game, and I remember it was one of the first games I ever got for computer. When we got our Windows 95 machine, I was like, I got to get Monster Truck Madness. So we went and got it, and then I realized that...
Did Kevin Nash get you with that you got Monster Truck Madness?
Kevin, did you get choke slammed? Pile drived?
No.
Come on, Big Sexy. What's wrong?
I've got Monster Truck Madness.
No, that was for 64. Before that happened. This is for the PC, and I got it all excited, got it installed. Took like, an hour, as it did back in the day. And of course, then I realized there was like no real monster truck racing in the game, and I was very disappointed as an 8-year-old kid.
Hey, Monster Truck Madness 1 did have drag racing. Monster Truck Madness 2, yes. For some reason, they thought that we were motocross guys. And we wanted to go around these big, weird-looking tracks. Sounds like a certain RC series that I know. But anyway, we scroll on right here. In Monster Truck Racing, you want instant response from the starting line. You want squat, hook, and fly, according to Mike Galloway right here. A great quote describing exactly what you want on a straight line course.
Well, I may have to beg to differ on the squat. We get into our next race here with, we're talking Bulldozer and Dragon Slayer, and I think the squat is the difference. Bulldozer kind of launches straight. Dragon Slayer squats down, and by the time that he actually gets moving, Bulldozer's, got a half truck length lead.
Yeah, and Bulldozer's going to win the race straight over the finish line, whereas Dragon Slayer's wheels up across the line. Craig putting on a show, I can tell you that much. A wheels up finish across the line for the Dragon Slayer machine. Honestly, I think Bulldozer squatted right, whereas Dragon Slayer squatted too much, and it caused the rear tires to really dig into that jump and push it into a wheel stand.
So in the near lane, it is the Bulldozer. In the far lane, it will be the Dragon Slayer.
Side by side, and it should be a great race. Let's see if guys get off the line.
The horns will move on.
It's a good race, though.
Yeah, I mean, it's just the suspension was working as it was designed on Dragon Slayer, but just not tuned up for that kind of a short burst. It's going to be able to take a big jump and navigate obstacles. That's why we saw it do so well in the obstacle course, but, just not quite enough rigidity in that setup for the drag racing. And we come back from commercial here, and the temperature's up to 42 degrees now on the event.
Yeah, 10 degrees more than the start of the show.
Well, we're 10 degrees over, just the last round, really. So, but the issue is, the monster trucks are running on alcohol. They're able to keep the doors closed while the monster trucks are running. But because the Pro Arena trucks are running on gasoline and they're creating a lot more carbon monoxide, they have to open the doors and ventilate the facility here to let some air in. And we'll check in about another 10 or 15 minutes through this round of Pro Arena trucks, this Fast 15, and the temperature goes down to, I think it's 5 degrees on the event floor. It's really a quick 11 degrees on the event floor in about 10 or 15 minutes. So it really makes a big difference for the performance of these vehicles and the metal getting brittle. And we see a lot of driveline failures in the second round of Pro Arena Truck.
Yeah, and that's very true. One thing I will point out is each fire marshal for each different building that you go to is completely different. I know you're familiar with a venue up in New York, Uniondale. That venue up there, they actually force you to keep all the doors open in the arena as the show is going on because they do not have proper ventilation. Here, I understand the ventilation for the Pro Arena trucks and the fact that you've got all these trucks running on gasoline inside this tight arena. I understand having to open those doors, but I imagine everybody in that building was screaming for them to shut them.
Yeah, it's cold in there for sure. And I'll tell you, you've been in Pittsburgh, and I don't know if it's the same fire marshal that we used to have there, but the fire marshal that we used to have at the Civic Arena, man, was he a stickler, because they wouldn't even allow the trucks to fuel up inside the building. They had to send the trucks outside in the middle of a snowstorm oftentimes just to put a 5-gallon jug of fuel into the truck. I mean, they wouldn't even let the fuel jugs in through the garage doors. So
there are several arenas, there are several stadiums that require you to do that. St. Louis is a stadium that requires them to fuel the trucks outside.
Yeah, I mean, and hey, it's their house.
Their house, their rules.
You got to play by house rules, and it's safety first. So, I mean, I can't really blame them. These guys don't do this for a living and know that, methanol fires aren't exactly a huge risk in most cases. But, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Exactly. Perfectly to be safe and sorry. Not a knock against any fire marshal out there, just simply stating the facts that this is what is required by some of those venues out there. We get into our final pro stadium truck standings, and as much as we talked about Joe Brozovic and Rory Fisher earlier, Randall Harlan sneaks up here and steals the win at a 28.67 over almost a little over a half a second faster than Brozovic.
Yeah, and I think the difference there in the pro arena trucks is these really, really steep single jumps that they have around the ends of the arena. Randall Harlan's truck just soaks them up really well. He's got a double wishbone front suspension. It goes over those bumps so much easier. And we see Brozo just kind of bouncing over him. Rory attacks him as hard as he can, but the truck's so light, it kind of bounces over and off of them as well. So Harlan gets the win here in Des Moines after rolling the truck the previous week in Memphis. So good news for him. He's going to, do as many of these events as he can on the tour, he says, as long as he can get off of work.
Yeah, I love that quote. As long as I can get off of work, I'll be back out here. Very soft-spoken guy is Randall. They also interview Brozovic, and Joe talks about how he and Rory used to beat up on him at the track all the time. He's learned the tricks of the trade, and now he keeps putting that Toyota in its place. The tailgate on the truck's dedicated to his father. He wished he could see him race. He actually started racing after his dad passed away. Rest in peace to Joe's dad right there. I got to tell you, though, Brozovic is going to end up being the guy on this series that everybody is gunning for, and Randall Harlan gets one up on him right here.
Brozovic does pretty well on TV. He takes the big win in Peoria, which is the highlight for his season, I feel. And he actually does a lot better in a lot of the non-televised events where, these are multi-day shows. They run a Friday night, a Saturday night show. I think for a lot of the taped events, they actually use the Saturday night show for the broadcast. And for some reason, Joe didn't have as good a luck on TV as he did off of TV. I remember he got hung up in Beaumont, I think it was, and I can't remember. I don't think he won in Denver either. So he ends up, putting the job together for the whole season. But this first year of Pro Arena Truck on TV, there's a lot of different winners, which is good to see. It keeps everything real competitive, and that's why I think it becomes such a fan favorite.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm a fan of head-to-head racing, but this time trial bracket that they've got right here it creates a lot of drama because you're always wondering as the next truck pulls up, well, I wonder if he's going to be faster than that previous guy. I wonder if he's going to be faster than that guy. It's something that always stuck into my head, and honestly, when I first would watch these as a kid, I wasn't all that interested in it. And then I started getting into the rivalry between Brozovic and Fisher, and it seemed like every time one guy would one up the other, and it was something that it was must-see TV. I'll put it that way.
Yeah, it was back and forth. One would go faster, and then the other one would go faster, and then they'd go to the next round, and he would beat him again. And it was always a really good, entertaining product for the fans. And these guys they weren't racing for big money, but they were racing for some contingency money, and I think for some free sets of wheels from Weld Wheels. They were a sponsor of the Pro Arena Truck Series this year and the next year. So you dangle even just the smallest of carrots out for these guys, and they're going to go after the win.
Exactly. And honestly, I'll point this out. I don't know if anybody watches Haley Deegan's videos on YouTube, but I literally watched one before we started recording today, and there were two dudes fighting over a pit bike race that they were at, just literally throwing haymakers at each other. And all it was for a free set of tires at the end of the event. I mean, some guys are really, really into this. Thankfully, our guys here in pro stadiums have enough of a voice that they're going to let their actions on the track do the talking. But you name anything out there, somebody's going to end up going really hard for it, and this is one of those times.
I think it was Greg Fuchs said in The Secrets of Monster Trucks that these guys would race as hard as they can if you'd run them for a stick of bubble gum. You know, they are competitive people. And I think something else about the pro arena trucks that's to be said here is another reason why they were so popular is because this was the everyman out there going on and put on a show for the fans in the stands and the fans at home. These were guys that worked day jobs. They didn't do this for a living. They all took their trucks out on the weekends and followed this tour and had fun and got to become stars for it. And it was kind of like the Joe Mechanic shade tree guy that works on his truck during the week and gets to go to his mud bog every now and then or something. It was the reflection of those normal everyday people that got to make it big on live TV.
Exactly. And you can bet your bottom dollar that they had family watching these guys at home as well. There were probably people watching this in their hometown that would literally just want the monster trucks to get over with just so they could watch Joe, watch Rory, watch Hopkins, all those guys out there racing. And I can imagine that Randall Harlan, this might be one of the highlights of his life right there, is being on live national television on TNN, beating some of the best guys in the country as far as pro arena trucks go.
I mean, save a couple guys that had actually put some engineering into their trucks by this point, maybe Harlan. The Hopkins guys had really good equipment. I mean, even Brozovich's truck was not very expensive. He had maybe a total of like 8 or 10 grand into that thing at the time. So, I mean, this really was a very accessible form of motorsports for people at this time. And that's what really showed through. And they even tightened the rules up a little bit for 98 because some guys were starting to dump money into these trucks and they wanted to keep it accessible for people to come in and race, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah, I agree with you. My Monster Truck segment that we feature next is Walt interviewing Craig and Julie Christensen. After about 3 years of helping Craig, Julie wanted to play too. She drives a Ford, he drives a Chevy. Why the difference? Because she wanted something that could beat him.
Some couples play cards together. Some even fish together. Some I know even play golf together. But have you ever known a couple that spends their time monster truck racing together? Well, we're here with a couple tonight that does. Julie and Craig Christensen out of Clearfield, Utah. Julie, why do you race monster trucks?
Craig's been racing monster trucks for the last 3 years, and I've been involved with that, helping him out, you know, supporting him there. But he's been having all the fun, and I've been kind of in the background working all the time. So it came time for me to play too.
The name of your truck is Misbehavin'. The name of his truck is the Dragon Slayer. You're driving a Ford. He's driving a Chevrolet. Why the difference?
Because I wanted something that'd beat him.
Well, you're driving a 460 cubic inch cast iron block blown motor. He's got a 525 cubic inch Donovan aluminum block motor that's blown. You think you can beat him with a cast iron motor?
I think I can. In these small courses, these small arenas that we do, sometimes the big motors take longer to build up the horsepower that they need. I can take off quick and be over the cars before they know what's happening.
Craig, you've been racing 4 months against her. Has she beat you yet?
No, she hasn't yet.
Well, what are you going to do when she does?
I guess we'll have to slow her down because everything's fine as long as I keep winning. But no, in all reality, I hope the best that she does, but she'll have to get used to what she's got, and then we'll give her a little more horsepower. That way they don't use that I have the big motor and she has the little motor against us.
How about the lightning quickness? I've seen her go off the line. She's real quick.
Yeah, I've tried playing games with her on the starting line a couple times and try to razzle her, and I always tell her, run your own race, do your own thing. And then I try to play with her on the line, and she won't stand for it. We were in Phoenix, Arizona, and she smoked me out of the hole. And so no more playing games. When we go to the line, it's every man and woman for themselves.
So a couple from Clearfield, Utah, have come here to run monster trucks together, and they're going to do a great job. Fellas, back up to you.
Yeah, and you know, they kind of go back and forth a little bit with this, and Craig ends up saying, you know, we're starting her off a little bit slower, and then as she gets better with the truck, we'll put a bigger engine in it, and then they won't have an excuse as to why the two trucks run any different. But you know, Julie's still pretty new at this, and I think she did a really good job driving this Misbehaving truck for all the years that she did.
Yeah, I agree with you. It was, like I said, it was a cool truck. It was one that stood out to me. I love the paint job on the truck. Honestly, like I said earlier, it's an awesome name for a monster truck too. I wish somebody would come back out with it or try to buy the rights for it.
I've got a mega truck that's in my area. It's about 3 miles from my house, and they use it mostly for like pulling the cars out at the demolition derbies and stuff. But it's, you know, on big racing canes. It's got a 4-link and everything, and it's called Misbehaving with 2 S's, and they use it for parades and a lot of stuff. And those guys in Jeanette, PA, they do a really good job. They're kind of well known around this area as the biggest truck in town.
Oh, there you go. We get another stunt here from Doug Dominguez, riding his three-wheeler up the cables, 30 feet in the air. His wheeling on a three-wheeler. He's wheeling all the way up and all the way down. I do like the fact, though, that he does have a safety device on the front of this thing that you might not have caught, because it's just a couple of small pieces of wire welded out with a little bit of a wheel on the end of it. So just in case he loses it, it's going to slam down on the wires versus just completely rolling him forward.
Yeah, it's in there to catch him in case something goes horribly wrong. But I've seen a lot of Doug Demokis, and I saw him do this act many, many times, and I never saw him fail at it. So thankfully, those things were just on there mostly for safety factor, and I don't think he had to use them that much.
He didn't have much tire pressure in the rear of that three-wheeler as well, and I think that was what really helped him. He had all the traction in the world going up those cables.
Oh, it keeps you nice and stable, and there's not really much of a way for that thing to come off of those wires because the tires are wrapped around the cables nice and snug. And he did this stunt, I think it's Stunt Mania, when they did the big monster truck jump off down there. He did like a supersized version of this three-wheel wire act, which, you know, is pretty crazy when you see how tall it was in that aspect. He's doing the small version for the arenas here, and you know, Doug Demokis is a legend. I think he's no longer with us, but he was known as the Wheelie King.
Yep, that he certainly was. I got to tell you though, watching him do that, I'm not by saying, oh, he's got a little bit lower tire pressure, I'm not knocking the man's talent for being able to get up and down and do that. That takes tremendous throttle control, especially on a three-wheeler, to be able to do that.
It takes a lot of skill sometimes to get it up like that.
Definitely takes some skill to get it up. As we move into the next round, Equalizer and Samson, ladies and gentlemen. This right here, as we said earlier, could probably be the battle of the two main trucks in this field. Samson's here after beating Misbehaving in round number 1. Equalizer is going to get a bye into the final round, or excuse me, the bye into the semifinal round here. The interesting pair right here, this is the old 1989 world champion, as we said earlier, taking on a truck that is probably the latest and greatest from the Patrick stables.
It's definitely, you know, Dan's personal truck that he's running. It's his best piece, and boy, close finish on this one. I would say that, you know, the difference here is going to be at the starting line. Both trucks launch together. Samson manages to get the better drive forward. The squat that Mike was talking about earlier, this is a good squat, not the Carolina squat that Dragon Slayer did. That's awful. We want to do the Samson squat, which is the truck levels out nice, takes off hard, and just gets the Equalizer here by a knuckle.
Yeah, that's what they call it in the booth, the win by the knuckle for the Samson machine right here. And I got to tell you, years upon years difference right here as far as technology goes, but still, the old 89 Warhorse Equalizer is able to keep up with Samson. Two trucks with a lot of horsepower.
What do you like in this one?
Ooh, I'd like to pick a winner, and I feel sure that it'll be the Chevrolet. I'm real positive about that part.
That's why we call you the professor of truckology. You don't miss a bit.
Don't miss a trick, do I, Ralph? It's just right on the line. Now they move in ever so slowly. Morris would love to beat Patrick, and it could happen.
Not tonight. Not tonight. I think the biceps were bulging and got to the line first.
Looked like he got by about just a knuckle. Makes him knuckle deep.
Ooh.
It does well, and we're going to see how this falls for King of the Hill overnight. You know, we've got Samson went out, second round in
obstacle. And now Equalizer goes out second round.
Goes out the second round, made it to the finals in the obstacle course. So we'll see how all this plays out point wise. There's a knuckle deep joke somewhere thrown in by one of the guys, and I think Galloway no-sells it very well thought out on that one for the live broadcast and for the family audience. But you know, we go into the next round of Bulldozer and Dragon Slayer, another rematch between these. Seems like these guys are facing each other all night.
Honestly, if you look at the brackets, I think, and don't quote me on this, I think these are the exact same pairings all the way through from the first bracket to the second bracket.
Yeah, they did the old Control C, Control V routine on that deal.
Yeah, they certainly did. We saw the whole shot in this round Excuse me. I'm sorry. I'm reading the wrong thing again in my notes. I'm talking over my head here again, folks. Before this, we actually saw a little clip at the beginning of this round showing that they were still replacing a lower 4-link bar on Executioner, which is why you're not seeing it in this bracket. And then here we see Bulldozer take a victory over the Dragon Slayer by about a wheel length here, virtually the same as their race in the previous round.
Well, the Samson Truck has moved on, one of the 3D trucks, and now it's time for the horns of the Bulldozer, which you see on the right of your screen, which is going to go on the near lane, and the far lane will be the Dragon Slayer.
Popular in Texas, it's a hook 'em horn sign.
Yes, it is.
Big
snout with the ring in it, ready to go. There's the Dragon Slayer. Horns all day, baby.
Yeah, and the difference again is that launch. Bulldozer just gets a better drives forward. Dragon Slayer hikes up before it actually moves forward. All that time and energy that's moving the suspension is not moving the truck forward. So that's the difference again here in the semifinals. It's going to be Bulldozer versus Samson, the horn versus the arms going into the straight line finals.
Bull and biceps in your final round here. And take note here, Matt, every win has come out of the near lane.
Yeah, it seems like, maybe the grip's a little bit better over there. I'm not sure if it's a matter of just the truck having lane choice or what it is, but all the wins seem to be coming out of that right lane.
And in that right lane, near lane to us, is Samson for the final round. The trucks don't appear to be lined up evenly, though. If you look at it, it appears Samson is just a little bit farther ahead of Bulldozer. Bulldozer appears to be a little bit farther back. Not much difference, but it is noticeable on camera.
I'm just watching the shot here live, trying to see if I can see for myself. I see Bulldozer in, and Samson, trying to see as he pulls up here. I'm going to say it's pretty even coming up to the line here. And, well, Bulldozer looks like he's to the line first, but there's a lot going on here.
Yeah, there's a whole lot going on here that we don't get explained right away. Bulldozer gets the hole shot, a huge hole shot on Samson. Horsepower in the other lane, though, it turns into the closest race of the night. You would not have expected Bulldozer to sneak that win out right there, honestly, with the way Samson had been running on this straight line. Galloway questions if the Bull left early or not. I'd be asking that same question myself. We don't have the flagman in view for us, so it's really hard for us to be able to tell exactly when the Bull left. However, they're declaring Bulldozer the winner right here, and Guy is going to get interviewed on television. Of course, he's going to thank his sponsors, all the guys back at the shop, the beef jerky company that's sponsoring him. I don't think this is over, though.
The two 3D trucks.
Now, the Bull needs to blow a little something
out the snow. Yeah, you're right. Even if it doesn't do anything for the motor, just push a button, blow some smoke out there.
That would make you real happy with it.
I like that. I'm turning you into a non-traditionalist monster truck fan. You're going, Galloway. You're on your way.
It could happen.
I will have you converted before the end, and when we get to Indianapolis, you will be a 3D monster truck fan. I'm telling you.
It could happen. I will accept that it's possible.
Okay. So the Bulldozer, right there, you're looking at it, snout first, going up against the biceps of Samson. Both trucks leave exceptionally well. This is a toss-up.
Well, it's going to be driver reaction time. Patrick probably a little more horsepower in his truck.
There is no Christmas tree here, too, by the way. They're watching our flagman. That is what decides. When the flag moves, they're gone.
They don't tarry long on the starting line. When Harbuck gets ready to go and it starts to move the flags, you're going to see two guys go for it.
Pick your favorite. Bulldozer in the far lane. Samson near lane, and Bulldozer with a great jump. Boy, the Bulldozer truck got a tremendous lead.
Hole shot was unbelievable. Now, it was just really, really close. The finish was very close. Did he leave a little early? That's going to be a decision. Let's see.
Look at it moving. You can see it moving first.
But now...
Yeah, look at Samson come on strong in the finish. I think the horns got there.
Maybe by a nostril.
Well, it is the horns that was the winner. And I tell you what, Bulldozer, his first time out on live television. Guy Wood, what a job you did.
Yeah, we're pretty proud of ourselves tonight. It was a good race. Dan Patrick's really tough competition. I'd like to thank Alberto and Smokecraft for all the support, Technique Towing, and Twin City Auto Body and all the guys back in the shop for getting it possible for us to be here this weekend.
Well, I tell you what, guy, it was a great job. Brand new truck, the Bulldozer. Back up to you, Ralph Shaheen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm looking at the ISO view here. There's a little bit more going on. I think even to what they're talking about on TV, we've got the Bulldozer got that big jump, but then Samson came back really strong at the finish. And that's because Bulldozer kind of almost looks like he comes up short on the cars. And when we go to the ISO view on Bulldozer, we see that the left rear wheel kind of stops digging as it goes up the ramp. I'm thinking the guy might have broke a left rear axle shaft on the approach to the cars, and that unloaded everything to the front end, and he basically only had front wheel drive for the rest of that run, and that's, you can't drive when you're in the air, so he didn't have no traction until the thing came back down, because when the rear wheels leave the cars, the right rear ends up still spinning and the left rear is kind of just dragging on its own. I think that's why Samson was able to come back so hard, that I think Bulldozer busted an axle shaft. That's just my analysis of this run.
It's a good catch. I didn't catch that, honestly. I mean, he did look slower over the cars, but I didn't catch quite into that detail. Honestly, I thought he just got the whole shot, and once he knew he had the race kind of won, he kind of backed out a little bit. I did not look at the rear of the truck. So good catch on your part right there. Bulldozer at this point is going to take the second 60 points on the night. We don't get an announcement at this point as to who won the King of the Hill from the show in Des Moines, but Ralph closes the show out and then sends it back to Katie and Randy, who are going to send us into a music video, Motor Madness music mix, the 4 M's right there off the bat. I love the fact this starts out with Motley Crue and then just randomly goes into a country song.
You can only pay the licensing rights for so much. So, this is a little video, as you said. It's mixed in with some Memphis footage from the weekend before, which the viewers obviously haven't seen yet, and it's interlaced with some other footage provided by the Bigfoot team. So we get a little music video there, and then we get back and they say, well, there's some things happening. We're going to go back to Des Moines and get an update from Mike and Ralph.
Yep, as we cut back to Mike and Ralph, it's actually declared that Dan Patrick has won this event, and by this point, all of the stands are empty, so the live crowd didn't hear this announcement, whereas all of us at home, we get the privilege of seeing that Dan Patrick has actually won this thing. The officials declared him the winner and deemed that Bulldozer, quote unquote, red lit on the line right there. And I got to tell you, Dan Patrick's pretty happy about that win. He doesn't necessarily want to win them that way, but he's pretty happy about it.
Well, there was some great action out there in Des Moines, Iowa tonight, and we need to take it back to Ralph Shaheen because I think they got a couple more interviews, or at least one for us. Ralph, what's going on out there?
Well, Randy, we've got to go downstairs and talk to Dan Patrick, the driver of the Samson truck, who did such a great job tonight. Walt, down to you.
Well, I tell you what happened. They said it was too good to be true the way the horn struck. The Bulldozer left the line, and Dan Patrick, you left a little too soon, so the winner is you.
Well, I looked over, he got a little early, but see, we only got about 20 feet in the air, so if you just, a split second can make the difference between a win or a lose.
So you had the flag all dialed in. He jumped the flag, so you get the win. Take him any way you can get him, huh?
Well, you don't like taking that way, but we'll take him.
Okay, well, I'm down here with Dan Patrick. He's the overall winner in the side-by-side racing. Ralph Shaheen, back up to you if you got the points for the King of the Hill.
Well, Walt, we have been given by the officials at USA the final rundown of the King of the Hill standings. Remember, we're trying to figure out which truck is going to get a bye when they get to Indianapolis. But, Mike, I have to believe with Dan Patrick winning here and running fairly well in the obstacle course portion, I think he's probably going to come out of this as King of the Hill and get that bye at Indy.
Yeah, he'll take it. And then he is going to get the win here for the straight line drags, and we're still kind of waiting to see who the actual King of the Hill is for the night. Mike and Ralph think that it's probably going to be Samson based on that win and then going out in the semis of the obstacle course. But I think the difference here is going to be that DQ that Samson got for hitting the pole. And that probably knocked him down the peg in terms of the tiebreaker, because your winner and overall King of the Hill in Des Moines is going to be the Dragon Slayer, Craig Christensen.
Yeah, out of nowhere, Craig Christensen takes the overall here with Dragon Slayer. Honestly, both trucks kind of had marks against them on the night. Dragon Slayer had lost a few races, whereas Samson, yes, it had lost a race and it DQ'd, but it didn't have to come back as a fast loser like Dragon Slayer did twice on the night. So Craig takes advantage of those reprieves and gets to come back, and it eventually leads him into an event championship.
Dan just walks in pretty easy this time around. Very good racing, and the points were close, but I do feel like Dan will be king of the hill out of this.
I don't think Bulldozer is done yet. We'll see him some more before the tour is over, and we finally pull into Indianapolis to wrap up our Monster Truck Challenge here in the Friday. We're told now, believe it or not, we're both wrong. Dragon Slayer will get the bye at Indianapolis. So he is the king of the hill, Walt.
You betcha, and we're down here with him. I tell you what, the family races together. You won the king of the hill, boy. That's got to be great, Craig.
Yeah, it is. I got to thank everybody that helps out. You know, we got a lot of guys that are here with us. We got a lot of guys back home that do a lot of time and spend a lot of their own time and effort helping us out. And if it wasn't for them, we wouldn't be here today to be king of the hill.
Well, I'll tell you what, that gives you a bye. You're on the road to Indy.
Well, that's what we needed, and just another excuse to come back out here to the cold, I guess.
All right, Craig Christensen, our king of the hill. Ralph Sheen, Mike Galloway. Back up to you, fellas. Been a great night.
And, you know, the whole premise of this King of the Hill on each night is that each King of the Hill at the TV events would get a bye round at the first round in Indianapolis at the series finals, where they wouldn't have to race in round number 1. Unfortunately, out of all the winners, Craig is the only one that doesn't make it to Indy. I'm not sure why. It seems to be like the kind of understanding that if you win, you're going to be booked for Indy in April. But for some reason, Craig isn't there. It's unfortunate, and we don't really get an explanation why Dragon Slayer isn't seen again for, you know, the rest of the season in terms of the events that actually happened here after Des Moines, because other than Memphis, which was the week prior, I think that's it for Dragon Slayer in 97.
Craig is interviewed right here, ironically wearing a San Francisco 49ers hat instead of a sponsor hat. He thanks his crew in the interview, and he also says he gets that bye to Indy, and he goes, just what we needed, another excuse to come back out here in the cold.
Yeah, when you're out west in the desert, I guess you're kind of used to being a little more comfortable than this. I can't blame him for not wanting to come back to the freezing Midwest, but maybe he just denied the booking. Who knows? But that's going to be our show in terms of Des Moines. They kind of wrap it up again and send it
second time.
Katie and Randy again, where they kind of preview next week's show, which will have feature stories on Bob Chandler, Robbie Gordon with Eli Gold, and then we're going to have Monster Truck Challenge number 2 from Peoria, Illinois, where we're going to see the debut of Bigfoot here on TNN Motor Madness. So overall, we've got the racing in obstacle course, we've got the drag racing, we've got an overall event champion with King of the Hill, and I think it's an interesting format that keeps things interesting and keeps the viewer engaged throughout the entire broadcast.
Yeah, it was one of those things that always kept me engaged as a kid, just watching back and forth on all of this stuff. I love the fact that we didn't get not one racing bracket, but we got 2 on the evening, which is something that I think Monster Jam could take note of if they want to revamp that arena tour. 2 racing brackets in a single night. You could do a straight line with that track that they have out there. I'm just saying, if y'all want to have a drag race, you could still do it. But to add an extra competition, get rid of the donut competition, because let's face it, everybody's seen a donut. Anyway, they could take some notes from this USA format, is what I'm trying to say. I love the format of the show. I love the broadcasting. I love Ralph Shaheen and Mike Galloway's banter back and forth with one another. It was perfect for this event. They did a fantastic job with each other. Katie and Randy Pemberton in the booth in the studio is also something that was really cool. I enjoyed listening to those two, and the fact that we had Eli Gold rubbing some NASCAR magic on Monster Truck Racing here, even if it is Kyle Petty. Sorry, I insulted Kyle earlier on in the show, but not a giant fan of his, but at the same time, his name in the mid-90s is still pretty big in NASCAR, and he means something, and he's something that somebody might have been just casually flipping through. They saw Kyle Petty, and then they realized what the broadcast was, and it might have kept that person watching.
Oh, for sure. And the whole idea of this programming block is for the general motorsports fan, which they got a lot of different coverage, and things would expand out throughout the season where they'd have qualifying results from NASCAR races. They'd cover all kind of things, dirt track racing. People would send in their local videos, and they would show different races from around the country. And we'd have, again, like you talked, the swamp buggies, ASA, demolition derbies live on television. They had a cool format for that. The Motor Madness brand in itself, I think, was one of the best ideas that ever came out of this era. And it's kind of a bummer. I mean, the closest thing we have now to that would be like the Lucas Oil Motorsports Hour. But in terms of live broadcast, and maybe some bean counter decided it's not worth doing live, but I think the live aspect of it has a little bit more mystique. And I really like the ability to kind of draw the show out over those 3 hours, build the tension, build the drama, tell the story, and then you can also interlace and cross promote a lot of other different things during that downtime.
I agree with you 1,000% on everything you just said. Nowadays, or back then, they could go 3 hours if they wanted to. I know they had to cut live and do a television show, but at the same time, they're getting you in the entire broadcast, and I don't think anybody watching this really cared. They wanted to watch it all the way through. At least that's what I always thought. The big thing that jumped out to me on this whole broadcast is 4 members of our team do excellent. Our arena broadcasters and our broadcasters inside the studio. I'm sorry, I got to go back to Walt Yarbrough. I think he might be the worst pit reporter we've ever covered on this show. I did not like the way he ended interviews. I didn't really like the way that he disrespected David Morris. And I also really didn't like the way he disrespected Craig Christensen earlier in the evening. There was one instance that we didn't get to touch on where at the end of the interview with David Morris, he says, I forget exactly what he says, but he says something. And it was almost like, hey, I'm going to let you finish, David, but Dragon Slayer had the best run of all time.
I'm down here with David Morris. And, David, you had it all won. What in the world happened?
I don't know. The temperatures here are so cold. We may have a fuel problem. When it went into turn down there, the motor died, and it never did come back on me until it was too late. So that's the brakes.
Well, I tell you what, your Equalizer looked great, but it was the Dragon Slayer who took it all today.
Yeah, there's a lot of good guys running here tonight, and you can't give any of them any slack, and you have a problem, and it's over with then.
Okay, well, it was the Equalizer shutting down right at the finish line, and it was Christensen that took it all. Back up to you, Ralph Sheen.
I'm really happy for you. I'm going to let you finish. But
Dragon Slayer
had one of the best videos of all time.
Mike and Ralph kind of get their digs in on Walt a little bit too. There's a segment toward the end where they show Walt at the concession stand, and and Galloway goes, "Yeah, I'll have a page 2 and page 3 of the menu and a Diet Coke."
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was really good. I just wasn't a fan of his. I'm sorry. I mean, he seems, if you look at the guy and you listen to him talk, he seems like a really nice, well-spoken guy.
Oh yeah,
but he's not good at his job, and I hate to say that.
He's not the right guy for that job anyway.
Not a good fit. Not a good fit.
Really well in the pre-produced segment with Julian and Craig,
but
live, I think that there's another aspect to that. The guys that they would bring in later, like Dave Burns and Fred Bartson, I think, was another guy that did a lot of these Monster Truck Challenge shows where they did a really good job and were a little bit more eloquent in a live aspect. And maybe that's why they decided to make the change up. But I mean, overall, I really love this format. This is the first episode, of course. I'm going to use the old Hooters slogan of delightfully tacky yet unrefined for the broadcast. I'm going to give this one a 7.5 out of 10.
I was going to be on the same mark with you. I was going to give it a 7 out of 10 as well. Like I said, I thought everything on this show was very well thought out, very well put together. There are a few little things here and there, like the fact that the broadcasters in the arena don't quite get the results up to them quick enough, I think. And they're just making banter out of it, but you can clearly hear on the live portion and the live arena broadcaster announcing over them, you can hear them on the floor telling exactly what's going on, whereas us at home are kind of left in the dark kind of deal unless you're really paying attention. There's that. And then, of course, Walt Yarbrough takes this down at least 3 notches for me. I'm sorry. He's just, like I said, nice guy, just wrong position for him to be in.
You got to give one of those notches back for the tagline of the Mean Machine Ralph Shaheen, though.
Okay, maybe half a notch back.
I mean, that's Dick Leak level nicknames right there.
Oh man, speaking of Dick Leak out there, I got to tell you, here soon we're going to see you guys again on the tracks across America. But what are we covering next week, Matt?
Next week we're going to be covering Monster Trucks 2000 from Fellsmere, Florida, the new Thrillenium. So make sure you tune in for that. It's going to be a good one, and we'll see you again. Well, that's your tagline. I'll let you have it.
We'll see you again, folks, on the tracks across America.
So is that the Bulldozer truck technically horny?
Like I said, rolling Blue Chew ad. Good night, everybody.